It was a humid Monday morning in California when Mercy arrived at the Johnsons' home. Just 21 years old, she had an innocent face framed by two neat braids, and her wide, inquisitive eyes seemed to always be searching for answers. Olivia Johnson, a successful lawyer, had hired Mercy to help manage household responsibilities while she focused on her demanding career. Her husband, John, a charismatic businessman in his mid-30s, had initially opposed the idea. Why not just hire a part-time cleaner, he had asked. But Olivia was firm. John, we need stability in this house. With my schedule, we need someone we can count on. The first few days passed uneventfully. Mercy kept to herself, speaking only when necessary, and worked diligently. Olivia found her respectful and hardworking. John, on the other hand, barely seemed to notice her. Or so it appeared. Yet, as Mercy moved about the house, she occasionally felt his gaze lingering a little too long. She dismissed the feeling, convincing herself it was just her imagination. After all, she had been warned about city life and the stories that came with it. Olivia, too caught up in work, remained oblivious to the undercurrent of tension beginning to form in her own home. Every morning, Mercy would wake before dawn to prepare breakfast. One particular morning, as she tiptoed into the kitchen, she was startled to find John already there, sipping coffee. "Good morning, Mercy," he greeted warmly. "Good morning, sir," she responded, keeping her head down as she began her chores. "You're always up so early," he remarked. "Isn't it exhausting?" Mercy simply shrugged. "I'm used to it, sir." John chuckled. "You can call me John. Sir makes me feel old." From that moment, their interactions became more frequent. At first, it was casual, small talk about the weather or how she was adjusting to city life. But soon, his words carried subtle undertones. "You're very organized, Mercy. Olivia's lucky to have you." She tried to ignore the compliments, uncertain of his intentions. Yet she couldn't deny the thrill she felt whenever he spoke to her. The attention was unfamiliar, intoxicating even. Meanwhile, Olivia's work schedule became even more demanding, keeping her out late most nights. Mercy found herself increasingly drawn into John's orbit, even as she recognized the danger. One evening, after Olivia called to say she'd be working late again, John decided on takeout for dinner. "Mercy, you don't need to cook tonight," he said with a smile. "Why don't you sit and eat with me?" She hesitated, gripping the dish towel in her hands. I'm fine, sir. I mean, John, I'll eat later." His tone softened. "Come on, you work so hard. One meal together won't hurt." Reluctantly, Mercy joined him. She ate in silence, eyes fixed on her plate, while John tried to engage her in conversation. "Do you miss your family?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, but I'm here to help them. It's worth it." His gaze lingered. "You're a good person, Mercy. Not many think like that these days." Her cheeks warmed, and she quickly excused herself. But as she washed the dishes, his words replayed in her mind. Was he just being kind, or was there something more behind his compliment? That night, Mercy lay awake, her thoughts tangled. She knew she was treading dangerous waters, yet part of her found the risk enticing. A week later, she woke in the middle of the night, feeling thirsty. She quietly made her way to the kitchen, not wanting to wake anyone. As she reached for a glass, the overhead light flicked on, making her jump. John stood in the doorway, dressed casually. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, his voice low. She nodded. "Just wanted some water." He stepped closer, leaning against the counter. "Sometimes I can't sleep either. Too much on my mind." Mercy hesitated, unsure of how to respond. The silence between them was thick, charged with an unspoken energy. "You're different, Mercy," John murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's something about you." Mercy's heart pounded. She didn't know whether to stay or run. Before she could decide, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway shattered the moment. Olivia was home. John stepped back, clearing his throat. "You should get some rest." Mercy nodded and quickly retreated to her room. But she couldn't shake the feeling that the boundaries within the house were shifting in ways she couldn't control. Over the next few days, Mercy tried to focus on her work, but her thoughts kept drifting back to John. What had he meant when he said she was different? Olivia, though preoccupied with work, started noticing small details. John was suddenly more attentive at the dinner table, unusually engaged. "This is delicious, Mercy," he said one evening, his tone warm. "You've outdone yourself." Olivia raised an eyebrow. John rarely acknowledged the help, let alone complimented them so openly. "Mercy's cooking is always good," Olivia responded lightly, but she studied her husband's face carefully. Something about the situation unsettled her. She dismissed it as paranoia at first. After all, she was a lawyer trained to notice subtleties. But something about the fleeting glances, the way Mercy avoided her gaze, gnawed at her instincts. That night, as she lay beside John, she decided to probe. "Mercy seems happier these days," she remarked casually. John shrugged. "She's just settling in, adjusting to city life, I suppose." Olivia nodded, but her intuition told her there was more to the story. She resolved to keep her eyes open, ignoring the signs had never served her well before. In her room, Mercy tossed and turned, unaware of Olivia's growing suspicions. John's attention flattered her, but it also felt suffocating. And as night fell, all three of them lay awake, each consumed by emotions they couldn't voice, setting the stage for what was to come. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to get notified when we upload part 2 of this story.